Blessings, everybody. Hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves. I'm Dane, host of the channel. Today's video is more cerebral than normal, but as you know, if you've watched this channel enough, from time to time I will do something a bit more cerebral. And therefore, today's video. Today's video is called Do I Need This? Subtitled Consumerism and the Philosophy of Jean Baudrillard. Now, let's jump right in. I've been reading, or I should say I've been rereading a lot of his works, the highlights, if you will, going back to some of my books or borrowed library books or loaned library books and looking at the footnotes, or sometimes people write in a margin even though it's a library book, that kind of thing, or writing down my own little notes or the books that I have and looking at what I highlighted and reconsidering what I highlighted or highlighting something new. And while I'm reading this stuff of a philosopher, much I agree with, and some of it not so much, and that's normal with anyone really, I began to realize, hey, there's a connection between what Baudrillard is saying in his philosophical musings with what some of the things I've been saying on my channel here and there. So a little bit of what I say you've heard before, but most of it is new. So essentially, one of Baudrillard's most famous arguments is that consumption, not production, drives capitalistic society. Let me repeat that. He argues that consumption, not production, drives capitalistic society. Now, I will tell you right now, it's an interesting philosophy. I'm not sure if I believe it or agree with it. I'm on the fence about it. I think you could say it either way. It's really the chicken and the egg case, but I'll get to that. So what Baudrillard often has said in his writings is that needs are constructed, not innate. In other words, needs don't come from within. He's not talking about basic necessities like food and water and that sort of thing, and basic clothing and electricity, that kind of thing. He's talking about consumer products, right? So once again, he says consumption, not production, drives capitalistic society, that needs are constructed, needs are constructs. Again, needs in quotation marks once, they are not innate in us. He says all purchases signify something social. They develop a fetishistic side. So let's talk about that, fetishistic or a fetish. What is a fetish? It is giving something or someone an unreasonable amount of attention or an unreasonable amount of importance. In other words, when you hear someone say, oh, this product was disappointing, it's way overhyped, right? That old song, don't believe the hype, that kind of thing, right? It's overhyped, it's overvalued. I was disappointed in what I bought, right? Caveat emptor and all that. Now, interestingly enough, going way further back to my indulging in my quest to read as much philosophy as I can, I was briefly interested in archaeology and anthropology, and I've always been, the connection to those are, of course, mythology, and I'm still a lifelong learner of mythology. I love it. I teach it my students. I connect it to real life when I teach it, and that kind of thing. It still holds value and verisimilitude. And I remember my sister suggesting a book by E.A. Wallace Budge, and it's called From Fetish to God in Ancient Egypt. And in that book, anthropological, archaeological, and mythic, the author talks about how the Egyptian gods came into being. One theory that they were essentially fetishized. They were fetishes. They were overhyped with respect to importance or interest. They were idols, and then they become gods. But from a Christian point of view, of course, they would be considered false gods. So again, these gods, according to this archaeologist / anthropologist, are an example of the process of evolution from fetish to idol to God, or just from idol to fetish to God. So back to Baudrillard, hard name to say, French philosopher Jean Baudrillard, says that purchases are objects, and that it says a lot about the users. Said purchases says a lot about a person's character. Now, rereading that, it made me think of something I said before on this channel, forget the video, but something else that I quoted in a video a while back regarding sales, or how what we often consider average or mediocre music appeals to the average. Someone posted something on Reddit or Quora, and they said that the best stuff, but meaning the mediocre stuff, the average stuff that people see and interpret as the best stuff, appeals to the average. And that average or mediocre or best stuff is not a reflection of the music itself, but rather the audience. And that's what I just said here. That a purchase says a lot about a person's character. So in other words, the music, liking a music, or trending towards, or trending, I hate the word, a person's like, special like or love of a specific genre. In this case, pop music, the mediocre, the average, is pretty much what many people will argue is the mediocre and the average music. Taylor Swift, Olivia Rodriguez, Adele, Dua Lipa, Lana Del Rey, Billie Eilish, that kind of thing. Who's the guy who sings "Never Gonna Give You Up"? That guy, right? Average music, right? Wang Chung, 80s music, Pet Shop Boys, that kind of stuff. So ABBA, Ace of Base, right? So again, the purchases and the sales is not a reflection of the music, but a reflection of the audience, the person's character, and that makes sense a lot. So when I was rereading Baudrillard, I was like, wait a minute, I talked about this, so there's the connection there. Now, what Baudrillard is arguing is that consumption or consuming trumps is greater than production. He says that the origin or beginning of quote-unquote needs, wants really. In other words, he says that this consumption precedes production of goods to satisfy and meet those needs. Now you have to be careful when you use the word meet, because it may not meet a person's needs. Like I said, it could be disappointing, subpar. Again, it's all open to interpretation. So essentially Baudrillard is turning the idea on its head, that production no longer, I don't think he ever says that production never once created consumption. I think he said that at some point it became reversed, that it evolved and it flipped. So again, the notion that consumption precedes the production of goods to satisfy that need. And again, this is a chicken and the egg case. Which one really comes first? It's a matter of opinion. This is something that's unravelable, to quote Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory. It's a slippery slope. But if we go back to something I mentioned in another video, I talked about how years and years ago I was looking at YouTube, and there was a fair, and this young girl is eating, because they're selling something called fried butter. And at the end of the video, her fried butter had melted, and she's scooping it up with a spoon and drinking it like soup. And I thought, how disgusting is that? You're just eating, in this case, souping up fried butter. And I thought that was disgusting. That's like, dumping mayonnaise in a bowl and just eating it, right? Bad for your arteries. Not sure how tasty that is, right, by itself, in conjunction with other things now we're talking, right? So on one hand, you could argue that production creates needs or wants or consuming. Baudrillard is saying the opposite, that consumption creates production. So think about that. People see, hey, people like butter. Let's try something new. This is a new way to market butter. We'll fry it, right? And so you're looking forward to a new market, okay? So you're saying, okay, people are going to consume this. You already have the consumption in mind, and the production will follow. So again, chicken and the egg concept. Essentially, reading between the lines, my interpretation of Baudrillard is saying is that essentially people will consume anything. Production is after consumption precedes it. It's mind-boggling, right? So this is a slippery slope, as I said, but in a previous video I talked about, haven't we had enough of the reissued CDs, the box sets with bonus tracks, the deluxe versions of something, the redux of something, Pink Floyd's, Dark Side of the Moon, reissues, right? Remixes, combination thereof, that kind of thing. Regardless of whether production comes before consumption or vice versa, I think Baudrillard is onto something. He is correct in saying that needs are a construct. I truly believe that. Oops. Now, he's essentially saying we manufacture way too many needs, aka wants. Again, I've said this before, but the marketing strategy of someone saying in a commercial, radio, TV, whatever, your life won't be complete unless you buy this. That's what Baudrillard is getting at. All right. So needs are constructed. Review. All purchases, not basic, not essential, but all purchases are essentially fetishes. Okay. That they're overvalued, they're overhyped. Now, moving away from that particular philosophy of Baudrillard's great body of work is something a little different, and that is his idea of what are the four functions, and I'm going to connect this to music as well. What are the four values of things that we buy? So my phone is right here. I want to make sure I have that title correct. So here's what it's called. He wrote that there are 4 ways of an object obtaining value. I love the note function on my phone. I can type my notes in as I take them out my books, my philosophy books. He wrote that there are 4 ways of an object obtaining value. It's called the four value making process. There are 4 of these. Okay. There is the functional value, there is the exchange value, there is the symbolic value, and there is the sign value. So this is a different argument of Baudrillard, but it also connects in the same way. So 2 different major arguments that Baudrillard has, and they're going to merge into my overall argument. All right, so let's talk about the functional value first. Again, the 4 value systems are functional, exchange, symbolic, and sign. So, and I'm going to use my own examples and not the ones that he gives, and you'll see. And I want to grab I have a CD here for this. All right, so let's start with the functional value. This is the most obvious. We know what function. The thing that you buy has a function. That's its value. So if you talk about clothes, you wear them. That's its function. And tied to that, so you're not naked. The function is to demonstrate a certain fashion sense, to show your love of something. Let's say if it's a Mickey Mouse t-shirt, right, to show your love of Disney. If you have a t-shirt that says F Disney, then the opposite, right? It's to match or face the weather that's coming, like a raincoat, galoshes, gloves, a beanie, linen pants in the summer, that kind of thing. Okay, appropriate clothing. So we get that. Right, now the exchange value. This is the clothes, sticking with clothes for a minute, I'm going to segue into a different example. The clothes economic value. So a winter coat may be worth a pair of slacks, a dress shirt, and a tie combined. Switching to another product, automobile, its value may be entire year's salary. Okay, moving on. The third value, symbolic. An object's value assigned by a subject in relation to another subject. In other words, between giver and receiver. Okay, here's an example from me. I got this Goblin t-shirt. Good looking t-shirt, right? I got it 2 years ago for Christmas, but it's 2 sizes too big. It's a large, and I wear a medium, and I tried to shrink it 3 different ways that it looked up. None of them worked. It's labeled as a large, but it's actually, comparing to other clothes I threw out a while back, an extra large, because someone else bought me an extra large sweatshirt, and it's the same size as this large t-shirt. So the point is that this was an Xmas gift. This was a Christmas gift, this t-shirt. Okay? So its symbolic value is, it may be sentimental because it demonstrates, one, the love of those towards me that gave it to me. That's the obvious. It could also represent my love of the music from this band. Unfortunately, I don't love this band. I like the soundtrack to Suspiria and a couple other songs, and that's it. It's the givers who gave me this that love this band. So you can argue, well, it's symbolic in the sense that it's a projection of their love for this band onto me. And that's when people try to shove their taste down your throat. It's a symbolic of that as well. Okay, now fourth is the sign value. This is an object's value within a system of objects. So how this shirt relates to other rock shirts. That's one example. But a better example would be if we stick to clothes in general, right? The sign value is the prestige related to another form of dress. So if you talk about wearing jeans and a t-shirt and, say, biker boots and trying to think of a cool hat, a cool baseball hat, right? That look compared to a 3-piece suit, compared to a baseball shirt and jorts and a cricket club in your wrist, and or say compared to the Harvard look, the stereotypical thing you see in comedies, the person playing tennis and they got the sweater draped over, with the white shorts and the white shirt and the sweater vest, that kind of thing, or the polo with the jeans, or the polo with the dress pants. So how one form of dress relates to another form of dress, that's the sign value or an object's value within a system of objects, in this case, types of fashion. And these may suggest social values, taste or class, or lack thereof, or expectation. So those are the 4 values. Now what Baudrillard goes on to say, and this is where it kicks into connecting to music, he says that 1 and 2 are the most important, that the functional value, if we talk about my bass guitar in the other room, the reason you buy a guitar is to play it. And then the secondary reason would be, well, I bought it, not me, but as an example, someone might have bought the guitar I bought because you can't get them anymore. It was the 75th anniversary of the Fender jazz bass. And it's a bourbon burst with a pistachio pickguard. It's beautiful, and I play it. It's not going to sit there. But some people might go, well, this could be $10,000 one day. It cost around $2,000. So they're more concerned with the exchange value than the functional value. They're never going to play it. They might even play bass, but they buy it because people buy Funko Pops not because they like them necessarily. I buy them because I like them, not because I'm going to resell them. So that's what I mean functional value. A watch, a car, a plane, you name it, right? A T-shirt, right? A car, if it goes up in value, which is rare, that kind of thing. Good cars go up in value. But Baudrillard goes on to say that it is the symbolic value and the sign value that disrupts the first 2, which are the most important. And he says the sign value disrupts the first 2 more so than the third. But if we talk about the third example, okay, let's use my guitar as an example, okay. Let's say it was a gift. It's not. I bought it myself with my own money. Let's say it was a gift. So it has a sentimental attachment to it, okay, giver and receiver. And let's say moving on from Christmas, let's say the guitar was a graduation gift. Let's pretend I got my PhD. I didn't. I have a master's degree. That's as high up as I went. But let's say, just for hypothetical sake to understand where I'm coming from, let's say that beautiful guitar, it's lovely, was given to me as a graduation gift for getting my PhD in English, let's say. Okay. and it has a certain sentimental value now attached to it. And therefore, it destroys or invalidates, according to Baudrillard, the real reason you should have this item, to play it and to maybe one day sell it and get more money from it. Okay? That's the symbolic value. But what really disrupts and destroys the functional and the exchange value of an item, sticking to my guitar, is the sign value. The prestige related to that guitar. Let's say that one day that guitar becomes one of the most prestigious guitars to own. It won't. It might be close. You can't get them anymore. They only put out X number of them. But let's say, okay, think of the Rickenbackers that came out in the 70s, or the Gibsons that came out in the 50s. I don't mean custom built to replicate those. I mean the originals, right? Think of a 1970 Chevelle 454 SS. Okay, I don't make those anymore. Okay, there's certain prestige and value that comes with that. But the value is more important than the prestige, is the argument for Baudrillard, right? So think of people who have a car and their priorities financially are skewed. They live in a small apartment, but they have a $60,000 car. Okay, they could have put that as a down payment on a house and bought a $25,000 car. See, this is the disruption, the kind of thing. So, again, the sign value, the prestige, the social values, the expectations, the wanting to demonstrate your taste and class disrupts why you should have it in the first place. Again, the most important one being a functional, right? Okay, so the CD. Why do I own the CD? To play it, to listen, to enjoy. Its exchange value is very low. This was not a gift, but let's pretend it was. I might not want to part with it because it was a gift. Okay? And if I don't like it, or never have, or don't like it anymore, then I'm robbing someone of enjoying this. That's where Baudrillard's going with this. If there's this represents a certain taste. If I'm more concerned with the taste, showing off my taste to others, or I'm stuck up and I'm a snob and my taste in my own head, I'm not talking with others, that's still a type of snobbery, is more important than the enjoyment and function of this. That's the disruption again. So essentially, here's the final connection, and the last thing I'll leave with you. Think of Deep Purple's last 5 albums, thereabouts. The new one, Whoosh, Now What, there's a couple other ones, right? Most of them with Steve Morse, the last 5. The new guy, I can't even remember his name, McBride, right? I think that's his name. I really think that if we look at these 4 values, and again, I've said this before, I think that the connection between Baudrillard's philosophy and people gravitating towards the back half of a catalog and saying that the back half of a artist or band's catalog is just as good or equally good or better than the front half. I've complained about that a lot. Now, it's just an opinion, but I think that some people truly believe, but I think that other people falsely believe their own falsehood that the back half of the catalog is good. And I've said some reason is because they brainwashed themselves, or because they've gotten bored with the classic stuff, that kind of thing, and so they force themselves, or it's a combination of those two things. But I think in some ways, some people will make that argument that the back half of a catalog, which to many of us is not very good at all or mediocre at best, is because of the symbolic value and the sign value that Baudrillard is talking about. In other words, that it may not be these CDs I bought on my own that are the back half, a hypothetical person, right, that represents a real person that has this attitude or belief system. I think that it's that band as brand, or the band has become a brand, and so they cannot do any wrong in their eyes because of the symbolic connection they've made with this band, or the symbolic relationship they formed, or the symbolic bond that they formed with the band. The same reason why you may not get rid of something you don't listen to anymore. I love this album, by the way. I'm just using it as an example. So the same reason why you won't get rid of something you don't listen to anymore, because of that sentimental value, whether it's a piece of clothing, right? A watch, a ring, a book, that kind of thing, when someone else could have it and enjoy it, or you could exchange it for something else, right? And then you would use its function. So I think that, again, using Deep Purple as an example, Uriah Heep is even a better example, their back half of their catalog. I think it's because they have this sense of nostalgia, or it's that symbolic value that it represents symbolically the love of this band, and therefore they can't accept the fact that they don't like it. And then the sign value, that somehow by owning the entire discography, it demonstrates their taste and class in the band overall, when they don't need those back half albums, so to speak, because if you like, say, if a band has 16 albums and you don't like the first 8 or 9, that still demonstrates your taste and class. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. I know this is a bit cerebral, but thank you so much for watching. Take care now. Bye. God bless.